wind is really picking up.
I'm in Australia, a land of extremes. Extreme heat, floods, and fires.
The fire is crossing the road, just right ahead of us. Wow!
Climate change is making it all more intense. This year's fire season has come early, and it's shaping up to be one of the worst in history.
That could get seriously big. Oh, she's gonna get seriously big.
We know life in Australia is becoming unbearably hot. But could climate change make the country uninhabitable? That's what I'm here to find out. Australia is vast and diverse, with coasts that meet 5 different seas. Being down under usually conjures images of an idyllic life of surf and sand, but a more realistic portrait of the country is emerging, that of a hostile desert.
The Central Australian outback. This place is inhospitable on a good day. Droughts and heat waves are commonplace here. Last summer, they experienced the hottest day on record, the hottest month on record, and the hottest summer on record.
In fact, Australia had to add 2 new colors to its weather maps for temperatures hotter than 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
Sun is something we escape here. Sun is something we avoid here. The sun will kill you here, quite literally. You're outside with no shelter, 3 days is all you got.
I came to Australia on a mission of discovery to find out if climate change was causing this place to become uninhabitable.
Flooding, droughts, and heat waves are nothing new here, but records show they're increasing in intensity and frequency. Deaths from heat waves have doubled in the last decade. Drought has drained reservoirs and driven families off the land they've farmed for generations. But what's fueling all these extremes?
Without a doubt, this stuff's being driven up by the fact we've got more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The climate's warming, it's shifting to a hotter state.
Australia is part of a global problem. Countries around the world are pumping more carbon into the atmosphere than ever before, mostly by burning coal, oil, and gas. The resulting extremes in weather, prolonged heat and bone-dry conditions lead to vicious bushfires. Lightning is most often the spark.
Victoria ablaze.
Year after year, the fire season is starting earlier, lasting longer, and fires are burning more intensely.
These things aren't just fires creeping along, these are firestorms. These are roiling, burning masses of gas that can just jump across grassy areas and start burning. They're huge phenomena that can move quickly, develop quickly, and fires are only going to get worse.
Bushfires are almost 20 times more deadly and 80 times more destructive than a century ago. This morning in the Adelaide Hills, it's already a scorching 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
The danger has been elevated last night up to catastrophic for today, and doesn't really get any more dangerous than catastrophic.
A decade ago, the worst fire weather conditions were called extreme. They've since had to add a level beyond that, catastrophic.
What the firefighters are demonstrating right now is their protection system. They have shields that come down on the inside of the glass and a water spray that surrounds the entire truck. So if the fire overtakes the truck, it keeps these guys safe. That is impressive.
And the risks for those on the front line are very real. Since 1980, 83 firefighters have been killed.
I hope you guys never have to use it.
Yeah, so do we.
Thanks, guys.
On a catastrophic fire day, access to burn areas is highly restricted.
I reckon that's pretty good.
The only way in is with the fire crews themselves.
Here we go.
Ian Tanner, a veteran with the Country Fire Service, is going to show me what they're up against.
We've got conservation park on both sides, so it's mostly vegetation.
Fuel.
Fuel, that's exactly right, fuel.
What the locals call vegetation, you call fuel.
We're traveling along a ridge through the Mount Lofty Ranges. On both sides are steep hills and valleys covered in dense bush.
You get a real sense now of what we're up against, and fire typically goes up.
It's the one thing that can go uphill faster than downhill.
All those houses up on that ridge line are almost undefendable on a day like today.
So people are evacuating their houses on the speculation that maybe a fire might form.
That's correct.
So how many people are we talking about here?
You could be talking about 100,000 people or more.
That's a major evacuation.
Obviously, not everyone does it. And
Clearly.
there's a house down there that's probably relatively safe. They would probably choose to stay home.
The Moorcrofts are incredibly well armed in their fight to protect their home from fire.
What I would really love is to see your sprinkler system in action.
Okay.
So what have you got going on?
Their elaborate sprinkler system can create a wall of water approximately 130 feet around the house.
We've lived here for 20 years and we haven't actually had a fire that's come within, well, a few hundred metres of the house.
The water comes from a 5,000-gallon tank that's dedicated solely to firefighting.
And so you got your personal bushfire kit? Radio.
This is the channel that gives all the fire warnings. A headlamp.
And this is all in the name of home protection.
That's right. You just never know when it could happen, so you always need to be prepared.
So if you live in the bush in Australia, the very bare minimum that you need to protect your property is this type of equipment. So we've got a report that just came in of a grass fire not too far away. And there's some other units that are being deployed.
Okay. For the moment, it's probably in grassland.
Oh, yeah, I see some smoke. Yeah.
Firefighters and volunteers arrive at the scene very quickly.
Where's the access?
There's a low-intensity fire in a predominantly grassy area. It's roughly 40 acres in size.
Here comes the crane.
It's crucial firefighters act quickly. They know from experience they only have 15 minutes to get this fire out, because on a catastrophic fire day, conditions can change in a second.
If you have a look at the leaves in the trees, you can see that the leaves are still there, so the fire hasn't got up into the trees.
Right.
So it's come through here fairly quickly. It's not real big high flames.
Here's an area where you can see the fire is just in this very low-lying fuel. So just the grass and the leaf litter.
Incoming!
Fire retardant.
In no time, the fire is pretty much out.
These guys are really on the ball. They're so fast at what they do.
Ground crews are backed by highly trained professionals and volunteers who dispatch crews and analyze fire behavior. As climate change increases the intensity of bushfires, operations have had to grow larger and more sophisticated.
It's very fluky wind at the moment. You can feel that wind now picking up?
That doesn't bode well for the rest of the afternoon.
No.
This steep topography can funnel the wind, making fire behavior very unpredictable.
You can see how these hot spots can easily flare up again. It doesn't take much. You get a little ember from something like this, and you've got a whole new fire.
And just as the fire is almost completely put out, Ian gets bad news.
It's jumped.
Right. Jumped across this little valley.
Crews have to act fast. They know that one ember in this thick brush with poor access could turn this small grass fire into a monster.
And the fire is just right ahead of us. Wow!
As climate change raises temperatures across Australia, it's fueling unprecedented bushfires.
Okay, that fire behind us.
What started as a small grass fire that was nearly put out has jumped into the thicker brush and is growing very quickly.
It's coming up through the grass here. Water bomber overhead. You can see it's getting very, very close, and it's gonna jump this. This is no fire break. It's gonna go. We're getting called back. Yeah, we're going.
It's spotted over the creek. Now, if it does that again and again, it gets very hard.
Australian bushfires are notorious for jumping huge distances. This is largely because of the eucalyptus trees. Firefighters call them gasoline trees because fire moves incredibly fast up the trunk, along the string of bark to the canopy of the tree. Up there, broad leaves that are filled with combustible eucalyptus oil don't just burn, they explode, shooting flaming bark and leaves in all directions. Add a good wind, and fire can be thrown as far as 20 miles away.
The situation is changing very, very dynamically. I've been given the 2-minute warning here. We have to get out because the wind is starting to change direction. I can see the smoke now blowing this way, so we got to bolt.
The fire has fully taken in the scrub. Heavier fuels mean the fire burns more intensely and is much harder to put out. Air bombers attack the head of the fire, but it rekindles in minutes. The fire's moving fast and is headed straight for the town of Kersbrook, where residents are scrambling to evacuate.
Just on one of the access roads here, and the fire is just coming up over the ridge and crossing the road just right ahead of it. And it's just making its way up on these branches. We've got a safe escape route down this way. We've got to really keep a close eye on the fire behavior. This tree here is already up. The wind is predominantly blowing in this direction, so the fire is going to spread this way. Here it comes. Wow!
In just a few hours, the fire has left a path of destruction through the hills 10 miles long and a half-mile wide.
Water bomber. Lizard running from the fire. That's what happens. The fire just pushes all these animals out ahead, and they're just running for their lives. So I'm gonna bring them over to a safe spot and let them free.
Fire continues down the ridge, leaving total destruction in its wake.
So you'll see it's not much left now.
So all this fire damage is just moments old. It's still hot.
Topography drew it to the top of the hill, and now it's heading south again at a fair rate of knots.
The fire burns through the forest, heating the ground 40 feet in front of it, making it impossible for crews to get close. We're able to follow the tail of the fire. That is, until shifting winds change everything.
Wow.
Until now, this fire was spreading with a narrow front. An extreme 90-degree wind shift has now turned the flank fire into a head fire, going from a half-mile wide front to a 10-mile wide front in the blink of an eye.
Is there any chance we're going to be able to stop it getting through there?
No way, mate.
That could get seriously big.
Oh, she's going to get seriously big, mate.
Support is called in from fire services in the neighboring states. But will they have the resources to stop the fire before it sweeps into the populated hillside towns?
Right now, there's basically nothing that the firefighters can do. They're trying to protect some of the assets, homes, farms in the area, but that's all they can do, try and slow it down. It goes to show how capricious fire actually can be. All it takes is a little ember from a fire that we thought was out to just light up the whole area.
And the bigger the fire, the more erratically it can behave.
Smoke devil!
On rare occasions, fire whirls can develop and throw burning debris miles away.
Whoa! This bunch of trees is basically exploding right here. The oil in the eucalyptus is picking up all that heat, and there was just this big surge. Oh. The wind is really picking up. Ah! The heat I'm feeling on my face right now is almost undescribable. Yeah, gotta back away from that. Ah.
Let's make sure the wildlife here has an exit. The fire spreads erratically and is fanned in some places by 65-mile-an-hour winds. It's burning in what is Australia's third hottest year ever recorded. The hottest was just 2 years earlier.
Looks like there's possibly another fire out here. See the smoke on the horizon?
As night falls, firefighters do everything they can to contain this out-of-control bushfire.
Crews will start to get on top of it tonight. Tomorrow could be a whole nother interesting story with some more bad weather forecast.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Fire crews work all through the night. But the mark of a heat wave is that nighttime temperatures aren't much lower than in the daytime. On day 2, the fire is declared a major emergency. So far, it's burned through 27,000 acres. It's hit 4 towns and 13 firefighters have been injured, and they have to deal with more catastrophic fire weather.
It is a scorching hot day with very low relative humidity. Of course, as these temperatures continue to stay hot year after year after year, we're just going to see more and more fires just like this one.
We know this because we can see that all of Australia's weather is changing. Because of climate change, Australian winters are now dumping more rainfall in big bursts, causing flooding, which results in more vegetation growth and so denser bush. But in the summer, the heat is on. More hot, dry days lead to drought, and all that dense bush turns into kindling. All you need is a spark to start a raging wildfire. We're briefed that 2 new major fires have broken out and are threatening the towns of Tantanoola and Glen Cove.
How's the house in here? I don't know, I'll ask him to go in and check.
This family got out safely, but nothing could be done to save their farm. This is the reality of living in South Australia. It's inhabitable, but just.
It's really astounding to see the power of these wildfires, just the tremendous speed at which they can spread, how hot they can burn, and how much of an effect they can have on the people that live here.
Over the next 4 days, 20 homes are destroyed and considerable livestock and crops are lost. But luckily, no one has died. That's not been the case in the past. The country's worst ever natural disaster was a bushfire.
We're finding more bodies as we gain access.
In 2009, 173 people died in the Black Saturday fire. Will firefighters in South Australia be able to stop this fire from turning into a similar disaster? By day 5, fire crews in South Australia are exhausted, but they continue to do everything they can to protect surrounding communities.
We want neat edges right along this other side if we can.
What really impresses me is the response that you guys have. So many trucks, so many volunteers. The people around here really do seem to listen to the warnings.
Yep.
And obviously, some places, all you can do is stand back and watch. There's nothing you can do in a lot of situations. So, yeah.
These firefighters are on the front lines dealing with some of the worst effects of climate change in Australia. Ultimately, it takes them 6 days to bring this bushfire under control. It burned through almost 32,000 acres. 27 homes were destroyed and 134 people, mainly firefighters, were injured. The total cost was nearly $40 million. This fire is one more dramatic reminder that the effects of climate change are upon us. It's a lesson that's hitting home from one end of Australia to the other. Australians are being forced to find unique remedies to their superheated climate, and they've come up with some creative solutions to the problem. In the heart of the Australian outback, the town of Coober Pedy has already found a drastic way to deal with the searing heat.
Well, come on down and I'll give you an idea of how we live. You're 10 metres underground here.
This place looks amazing. It's certainly not cave-like. You even have a window.
Yep.
And that's just a borehole to the surface. Cool in the summer, warmer in the winter.
Yeah.
No heating or air conditioning costs whatsoever.
No. Ideal.
For those days under 30 degrees, the resourceful adaptations of Coober Pedy continue outside.
So this is the Coober Pedy golf course. I see you're missing something rather important, grass.
Yes, so we got blacks instead of greens.
And you have 18 holes here?
18 holes.
This is the worst golf course I've ever seen.
Yep, and it's probably the worst in the world. Your ball will always end up in the rough here. Someone's just gone ahead and built an 18-hole golf course in the middle of Central Australia as an act of defiance. It's like, you tell me I can't, well, here it is.
And that sort of defines the Australian personality of...
Yes, that pioneering mentality.
The people of Coober Pedy have found a unique way to beat the heat, but this is just one community. If temperatures keep rising the way they have been, the entire country may soon look like this. But will it become uninhabitable?
Well, Not to Australians. The one thing that I've learned about these people is that they are strong, they are resilient. They take pride in being able to adapt and survive in these types of environments, as harsh as they might be.
There may not be a need to adapt if Australia's climate becomes more hospitable. That could happen if countries around the world reduce the amount of greenhouse gas they're putting into the atmosphere. As Australians confront the most dire effects of climate change, they're turning to alternative energy sources to fight the problem. Australia is giving the rest of the world a glimpse of the future if climate change goes unchecked. Maybe it can also show the world what can be done to fight it. I'm in Siberia, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. As global temperatures rise, this enormous icy land is melting. The entire region is built on top of permafrost, which is now thawing at an alarming rate. The ground is collapsing, traditional ways of life are threatened, and large amounts of previously trapped methane gas are seeping into the atmosphere. Siberia's big thaw could have a catastrophic effect on the entire planet.
This is red-eye flight number 3 of 3, heading to the city of Yakutsk in Siberia.
We're on our way to one of the most northerly cities in Russia. Just 280 miles from the Arctic Circle, 6 time zones from Moscow. I'm joined by Aliona Pimenova, who'll be my translator and guide as I travel to some of the coldest places on Earth. It's my first time in Siberia. It's an enormous region that covers 77% of Russia.
To put it in perspective, it takes up about 10% of the land mass on Earth. It is massive, and a good portion of that is permafrost. That land that is frozen all the time except for that top layer that freezes in the winter, thaws in the summer.
70% of Russia lies on permafrost. It's a permanently frozen layer below the Earth's surface, made up of layer after layer of soil, sediment, rock, and ice, built up over thousands of years. So, how deep does it go? Yakutsk has what I need to find out.
The deepest hole in permafrost anywhere. And it just so happens they're doing maintenance on it today.
They're going to work right now. They're trying to get rid of the ice.
It's called the Shurgan Shaft. Started in 1827 and now 380 feet deep, built to explore how far down the frozen ground goes.
It's really amazing how deep this shaft really is. There's a chart here on the wall. The worker that's down there right now is about here. It goes a long way down.
Information acquired here shows that the permafrost in Siberia is some of the thickest in the world, 1.5 miles deep in some places. The entire city of Yakutsk is built on it, which has led to some peculiar adaptations.
One thing about building a city on permafrost is the top layer, well, it's not so permanent. So a lot of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually up on these concrete stilts. It's the only way to keep the foundations from warping when it melts and refreezes. Installing and repairing pipes in frozen ground, extremely difficult. So what they've done is put them above ground and insulated the hell out of them.
Infrastructure and houses are vulnerable to the shifting ground.
Some of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually twisting and sinking into the permafrost. This is known as subsidence.
The top layer refreezes each winter, but to varying thicknesses as Siberia gets warmer. Today, it's -1 degree Celsius, which is far from normal.
The average winter temperature here in Yakutsk is actually -34 degrees. It is nowhere near that today. The skaters are enjoying this warm spell.
Siberia is one of the fastest warming places on the planet, and that has potentially serious consequences for the permafrost below.
What most people don't realize is that trapped under the permafrost here is a ticking time bomb for climate change.
I've come to the underground laboratory here at the Permafrost Institute to learn more.
The coolest part of the Permafrost Institute, literally and figuratively, is the tunnel they've built underneath the building, 12 meters down. Here they can actually study the permafrost in situ.
Leading expert Dr. Alexander Fedorov has observed some big changes.
Вот это большая проблема.
This is the main problem that they are studying, the permafrost melting.
Right.
Изменение температуры мерзлых пород идут. Глубина протаивания увеличивается, и криогенные процессы сильно активизируются.
Melting permafrost is releasing huge amounts of methane gas, causing global concern. Researchers have found lakes literally bubbling with methane. Permafrost acts like a lid, locking carbon gases like methane in the ground. All that gas was formed from long-buried organic matter, dead animals, and plant life that have been on ice for thousands of years. Now, increased heat is penetrating deeper into the permafrost, thawing it, and releasing these dangerous greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This could have a bigger impact on global warming than the burning of fossil fuels.
Усиление вот этого глобального потепления, она может произойти очень быстро.
Our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more, runaway greenhouse effect that could put us in the position where it becomes irreversible.
Every year, Dr. Fedorov and his team drill deep into the ground to analyze changes in the permafrost.
How far down do you drill?
5 meters, 6 meters.
That's some tough stuff.
Dr. Fedorov probes the permafrost in many locations. And what he's seeing in northern Yakutia is alarming.
We have surface subsidence more than 2 meters.
Surface subsidence of 2 meters.
Subside.
As the icy permafrost melts, the ground sinks. The formation of thaw ponds and lakes is rapidly increasing all over northeastern Siberia.
You're seeing dramatic changes.
Yes.
Scientists predict that the area of permafrost in the northern hemisphere will decline by 20 to 35% by the middle of this century, releasing a monumental amount of greenhouse gas. But as the ground melts, it's also unearthing some fascinating finds.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old.
While the melting permafrost is a major concern, there is one positive side effect. The thawing has led to some incredible discoveries.
It's not just methane gas that's released by the melting permafrost. Sometimes things like woolly mammoths are found here, and Yakutia is the place in the world to find these frozen prehistoric creatures. There's a researcher here who's going to show me exactly what that's all about.
The Mammoth Museum houses the most diverse collection of ancient animals in the world, some of which were recently exposed in the thawing ground.
Do you think that as our climate gets warmer, it'll be easier to find more of these mammoths?
Да, возможно, есть какая-то связь. Да? Сейчас вот у нас на севере Якутии образовалась огромная дыра в земле, котловина, где вот нашли вот этого бизончика, который там лежит, и тушу лошади.
Today, Professor Grigoriev is taking me behind the scenes to show me some of his most impressive discoveries.
Most important place in museum.
Yes. Wow.
Mammoth tusks.
Yes.
Very good preserved. Tusks of Malalechovsky mammoth. With blood, with muscles. And one of the first domesticated dog on the road.
The first domesticated dog?
Geological age, 12,500.
12,500 years old.
The pressure of layer upon layer of built-up ice flattened this dog.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old. You can see the teeth and the hair, everything here. It's amazing.
You can find similar find only in Yakutia.
In Yakutia. Without a question, this is the strangest walk-in freezer that I've ever been in.
The discovery of prehistoric animals demonstrates that the land is thawing, but how much of it is melting is so far unknown.
So I've met with the scientists, but what I want to do next is meet with the people who live off the land.
I want to see how the melting permafrost is affecting them. I'm hitting the road and heading far north to some of the most isolated communities in Russia. I'll be camping with reindeer herders along the way to my ultimate destination, Oymyakon, the coldest town on Earth. Eliona!
Oh.
Eliona and our driver, Artum, will be making the journey with me. It's going to take 4 days of driving in treacherous conditions. First, we need to get across the Lena River, which for now is frozen solid. At least, that's what I like to believe. Today is about an 8 to 10 hour drive, getting from Yakutsk up to Kandiga, and that's where we're gonna be spending the night. And back onto solid ground. We're now on the Kolyma Highway, otherwise known as the Road of Bones. It looks like any other road, but very few roads have the history that this one does. It was built during the Stalinist era by the prisoners of the infamous Gulag labor camps. The skeletons of the forced laborers who died during its construction were just buried into the road itself. The road is notoriously treacherous. It was laid on permafrost, so it's twisted and uneven. In places, it's very narrow and covered in a layer of thick snow. A common practice during the coldest part of the year is to never travel alone. If you break down and you've got no help, bad things happen very quickly when it's minus 50. It doesn't take long before we spot trouble up ahead. This truck lost its load of pipes and went right off the road. I've heard so many stories about this road, how dangerous it is. Usually the weather conditions are bad. This road lives up to its name. An hour and a half later, there's another accident. So the emergency services guys are down there right now. Oh, wow. It's been just one obstacle after another all day long, and we still have a long way to go. We press on, but getting to Oymyakon is not going to be easy. After sneaking in a few hours of sleep in Kandiga, we're back on the road early the next day. So the plan today is to go a little further north up to one of the Gulag areas. Heaven forbid, if you were a criminal or a political prisoner, this is where you would have been sent. It's quite a bit further north. It's going to take quite a few hours to get up there on a really bad road. And the camp is away from the roads. It's not going to be easy to find. There's a lot of barbed wire here. Another building down there. The gulags were a vast system of prisons that spanned the entire Soviet Union. And between the 1930s and early 1950s, between 15 and 20 million people working hard labor, long hours, in all conditions, all seasons. Horrible. Work people to death. To honor the prisoners, locals have built a museum in their memory. Many were convicted of the most minor offenses, like Anna Aminalova.
Она в 43-м году, 14-летняя девочка, ее отправили по этапу Магадан, осудили на 10 лет за то, что она, воровала килограмм картошки.
She survived, and her story can be told, but many did not make it out. These gates are not particularly high, not particularly strong, but then again, they didn't need to be. In this terrain, in Siberia, if you escape, you faced almost certain death in the wilderness. We're back on the Road of Bones, and our plan is to reach the reindeer herders of Uchige first thing tomorrow. It's slow going, and we're down to one lane when we hit another roadblock. This is actually a pretty serious situation right now. We have several vehicles stuck on this road, and no one can move in either direction. Not good. Thankfully, it's not minus 50. Everyone pulls together. The road is cleared, and we can keep moving.
We are free and clear for now. Fingers crossed. Time to switch up the mode of transportation.
I'm joining the local reindeer herders for a journey into the wilderness. Their 1,400-year-old way of life is being threatened by the changing climate, and I want to understand more.
Off to the next leg of my adventure. On a reindeer sled in Siberia. Woo! It's like dog sledding with less barking.
Reindeer herders rely on the income from selling reindeer meat, a staple in this part of the world. They're constantly moving and must trek every few weeks across this vast wilderness to find new pastures for their reindeer to graze.
Whoa! Ow. Oh. And we just had some kind of harness failure. Ouch.
After 3 hours of sledding, we've hit base camp.
It's home for tonight.
The temperature is -20, which is actually warm for this time of year, a trend the local herders have noticed.
В этом году в ноябре-декабре тепло было, потом резко в какой-то период заморозки стали, потом опять потеплело потихоньку.
Every aspect of their life revolves around the weather, and they have to be able to work with it, work around it, and still be able to prosper and survive.
But now, the warming climate and melting permafrost is slowly killing off the reindeer. Mikhail Pogodayev has lived with the reindeer his entire life. He now advocates for their survival.
When climate is changing and you see that there are changes on the snow conditions, the reindeer will starve if the pastures will be packed with the ice.
As warm spells increase, the snow melts, leaving a layer of water. But in a snap freeze, an ice crust forms that the reindeer can't penetrate to find food. 12,000 reindeer died of starvation last year. For the herders, climate change is very real. I'm camping out with the herders for the night. They're preparing a hearty meal: stew, hot tea, and vodka.
A tradition they have here is to make a little sacrifice before every meal. Usually a bit of food or maybe a splash of vodka goes into the fire for good luck and health.
It's time for bed. The sun is going down, and so are the temperatures. It's -40 degrees, and it's shaping up to be one of the coldest sleeps of my life. Tomorrow, the pole of cold is in our sights, and even this place isn't immune to climate change.
The fire died about halfway through the night. Whew. Inside the tent, that's what happened to my water. It was kind of cold.
It's time for me to leave the reindeer and carry on my journey north. We head out. We make sure to load up at the last gas station before Oymyakon. After a day's driving, we make it to our final destination, the coldest town on Earth. It's a bumpy arrival.
I guess this is the kind of roads you get when you build your town on permafrost. The road just twists and buckles.
In the 1920s and 30s, it was a seasonal stop for reindeer herders. Now, it's a permanent settlement of just 500 people.
I finally made it to Oymyakon, the pole of cold. And on February 6, 1933, they recorded a temperature of -71.2 Celsius, extremely cold. Nowhere in the Northern Hemisphere has a temperature that low ever been recorded.
It may be cold out, but our reception is warm. The locals are performing a traditional welcoming ceremony for us.
So what is it about this place in particular that makes it so cold? The main reason is that Oymyakon sits in a valley The cold air is trapped by these mountains, and it just sits there and pools. Beautiful blue sky, but bone-chillingly cold.
But not as cold as expected. Today, it's minus 31. Aliona and I are at the local weather station, where we meet meteorologist Mika Bakarova. They've been recording temperatures for the last 50 years here, and have observed some big changes.
Вторая декада марта официальная, на 4 градуса температура была выше средних многолетних норм.
Local fishermen have noticed the shift as well.
А раньше здесь лед такая толстая была, да? Сейчас уже такая становится, потоньше.
Arctic temperatures are expected to increase between 1.5 to 2.5 degrees by 2040, meaning the permafrost will continue to thaw at a dangerous rate.
We're afraid that we're going to reach a tipping point where our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more. And you can see where this is headed.
There's no doubt the temperature here is warming, but if global greenhouse emissions can be reduced, it may not be too late to halt this rise and keep the permafrost frozen. At any given time, there are dozens of volcanoes erupting on Earth. But reports coming from the remote island of Fogo off the coast of Africa are especially alarming. A river of molten lava is advancing on one of its villages. How far will it go? The answer could be the difference between life and death for its residents. I know firsthand how volcanoes behave. I've rappelled deep into exploding fiery craters and explored, up close, many of the world's most active volcanoes. To understand what's happening in Cabo Verde, I have to go and see it for myself.
Wow!
I'm on my way to Cabo Verde, cluster of 10 volcanic islands off the coast of West Africa. Santiago is the largest of the islands. From there, I'll travel to the island of Fogo, where its namesake volcano is erupting furiously. The last eruption on Fogo happened in 1995. 1,300 people were forced to flee their homes in the middle of the night as lava flowed through their houses and blocked the only road access to the town of Portela. Will the damage be as severe this time? Reports suggest it might actually be worse. Once in Santiago, I meet up with local guide Simon Levy to get up to speed on what's happened since the volcano started erupting just 1 week ago.
What are they saying about the situation?
The situation is bigger than the last eruption in 1995.
And this eruption could end tomorrow, or it could go for months.
The people there and here also is all in panic, so they don't know what will happen, so that's the problem.
Wow, there is some concern that this whole area will be filled.
Yes, because as Andas Caldeiras, the volcano is higher, so all the small village around, down, so the lava
just goes to the lowest points and fills up.
I need to get up there for myself and see where this lava is going and provide my assessment to emergency officials. With the Fogo airport closed, I have to travel by ferry.
Sorry. Squeeze on through.
And I'm not the only one. Emergency aid workers are also making their way to the island.
Looks like we're starting to line up now. The people that are evacuating from Fogo are just getting off of the ferry now, and hopefully soon, within the hour, I'll be on the boat and on my way. Hopefully.
It's a 4-hour ferry ride from Santiago to Fogo. Our trek to the volcano starts in São Felipe, the island's main city. From here, we'll need to drive up and into the volcano's caldera, the lowlands surrounding the volcano's peak, where the village of Portela is located. So far, the lava has reached the border of the town, steamrolling entire buildings as it moves forward.
I've run into Patrick Barois. He's from France. He's a very, very experienced volcanophile, been all over the world. He was here in 1995 for the big eruption there, and he'd written 5 books about volcanoes.
Yes,
so what was it like here during 1995?
There is big lava flow, big explosion, big lava fountain, but this eruption is not the same, because this eruption is more dramatical, because the lava flow now has destroyed the ground, the villages. It's a problem to build house in this kind of volcano, because it is the house of the volcanoes, and the volcano decide himself what to do.
Right. People that build in there, they're basically building on the volcano's land, the volcano's property, and they're living on borrowed time by building in there.
By reaching the volcano, I'm hoping to see the lava flow's direction and get some insight as to whether or not it'll flow past Portela and into the village of Bandiera. It doesn't take long to hit roadblock number 1.
All the other alternative roads to go inside, it's completely destroyed. So that's the reason they stopped, because Portela village is completely covered with the lavas at the moment.
This is one of the villages where the people who've been evacuating from basically the destroyed towns have been setting up shop. Things are getting a little heated here. There are tents, there's food, there's water, but it's crowded. There's only one toilet for the whole facility, so some of the people are not too pleased. The people who live here feel they're not being listened to and their needs are being ignored. They're extremely vulnerable, forced to live in the shadow of a volcano in order to take advantage of the rich soil this dangerous corner of the Earth offers. Part of Portela is already hit. Hopefully, the lava will stop before more damage is done.
So let's go to say
Well, let's get up to, of course, where we can.
How many lives are in danger? I've got to keep moving if I'm going to find out.
Visibility is so bad, can't see anything.
As the volcano is erupting, it's releasing carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. While these emissions don't have a huge impact on climate change, the combination of these gases can be lethal for people, animals, and vegetation. As we head towards Portela, we drive through barren land that until recently was thriving with agriculture, an important part of Fogo's economy. Despite the dangers of growing in close proximity to the volcano, more and more people are settling here because there's nowhere else for them to scratch out a living on the island.
All right.
I finally come face to face with what I've come here to see, the river of lava.
So this is the brand new lava flow. It's probably a couple of days old. It's not hot. It's warm. The sky is starting to clear up a little bit, so I'm kind of enthusiastic about that because I can hear the vent. The lava is erupting right now. Well, the peak of the volcano is there, above the cloud, but this eruption was not at the summit. This eruption was actually down a fissure eruption along the flanks on the side.
Volcanic fissure eruptions occur in cracks or fractures along the side of a volcano, rather than through the main cone or vent.
It's definitely still active. It's hard to hear, but it's definitely going on just behind those clouds.
Think of this lava flow as a snake.
Anything?
The tail is 1.5 miles behind us at the base of the volcano. If this is the body, where's the head? We need to get to the very front of this lava flow. Reports suggest it's in Portela.
Let's go.
But who knows what we'll find when we get there.
Fresh lava, let's go.
Lava's moving.
It's moving. That's
each 1 hour.
Let's do it.
Three days ago, you could keep driving right to Portela. But unfortunately for us, this fast-moving river of lava passed through, leaving a wall of solid rock in its wake.
This used to be the road to the town of Portela, but for some reason, they can't use it anymore. Literally, the end of the road. A construction crew is further up the hill trying to build a new road so the town has access again, but it's going to take some time.
Giving up and turning around isn't an option. So we abandon our vehicle and hike the rest of the way. I need to get to the front of Fogo's lava flow for a sense of where it's going next.
We had to abandon the car because this road is not safe anymore to take a car onto because it could disappear very, very quickly.
Right now, we're at the base of the volcano. The molten lava is flowing from its side and traveling right into town. It's a huge threat to everyone who lives there.
I'm actually at the point where this lava flow is actually on top of the old lava flow from 1995. So you got stacked flows together. And there's pieces tumbling down here. This whole thing is moving.
When a volcano erupts, all that lava, along with ash, rock fragments, and gases, are ejected into the atmosphere. While the gases will eventually dissipate, the volcanic material will settle and cool on the ground. Eventually, that material will break down and become young, fertile soil, containing many of the same elements found in commercial fertilizers. This can take anywhere from a decade to 100 years. Climate is the single most important factor for soil development. Tropical climates, like Cabo Verde's, help speed up this process. The volcanic soil on Fogo is perfect for harvesting vegetables, coffee beans, and wine grapes. For farmers, the benefits outweigh the risks. Finally, we've made it to Portela, or what's left of it. Until a few days ago, this whole area was covered in vineyards, producing export-quality wine. But the eruption has completely buried the most lucrative vineyards. Now, all that's left is a field of lava and a few drops of wine.
Some Fogo wine. So this is the last wine that was produced here. It's the very last batch. There will never be any more like this. Oh, that's very strong. That's good.
We knew the town had been hit, but nothing could have prepared us for this. And it's not close to being over.
It's almost unimaginable what's happening here. This unstoppable wall of hot rock is just steamrolling into the town of Portales. I'm up on a hill right now overlooking, and I got a really good view of how vast this lava flow is. And it just goes as far as the eye can see, and it's just pushing into the town. There is almost no chance for most of these buildings to survive.
Locals are trying to save as much as they can. They've removed doors, windows, furniture, and carried everything up the side of the hill where they pray the lava won't reach.
Ou seja, nesse momento ali, casa já gastou já mas completa.
So where was her house?
So the house is completely covered, and everything, all stuff inside. She didn't have time to take out.
The people of Portela have not only lost their homes, they've lost their livelihoods. It's absolutely devastating.
Hard to put into words. This unstoppable lava flow it's in town right now.
This is the head of the beast I've been chasing across the island. If I want to get close enough to analyze this lava, I need my heat-resistant suit. It can protect me from temperatures of up to 2,000 degrees.
Now, what this suit does is it protects me from the radiant heat. What it does not protect me from is the actual rocks, these avalanches of lava chunks. So the lava here is actually a little bit more fluid than in the other part of town. As soon as I touch my hammer to the lava, it just immediately bursts into flames. Even with the suit, that is unbearably hot. It's burning my ears. Ow! Ow!
I'm using an infrared thermometer. Lava can reach temperatures up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
I've gone off the scale.
This lava must be hotter than the 1,000 degrees that this thermometer can read.
Off the scale. Okay, that's useless.
Evacuation of these homes began as soon as the volcano first erupted.
Oh, wow. Oh, jeez. Holy smokes.
Less than a week ago, the family who lived here was forced to evacuate in the middle of the night, taking with them whatever they could carry.
The glass is broken. The door is hot. Wow, more glass coming through. Very, very soon, this wall is going to just completely come crashing in. I don't think this lock is going to hold it for much longer. It sounds like rain or hail outside, but it's actually rocks coming in. Wow. That was something.
I may have just avoided death by steamrolling hot lava. Even though the lava appears to be moving relatively slowly, it's actually moving at 100 feet an hour. It would take it under 3 hours to cross a football field. That's fast. In 4 days, the lava has destroyed just about everything in this town. And by the end of the week, another town will be in the lava's path.
To me, it blows my mind how we all live on this thin skin, this crust on top of the Earth. If you were to shrink the Earth down to the size of an apple, the crust that we live on would be about as thick as the skin on that apple. And everything else inside is basically this. Civilization exists because of geological permission, which is revocable at any time. I don't know how we do it. It's amazing.
It's the reason volcanoes are so closely monitored. Except poor countries don't always have the resources and latest technologies to observe them as carefully as they'd like to. This really is a world problem. While it's too late for Portela, other towns on the island are still at risk. So for now, my biggest concern is just how far this lava flow can go. And for that, I've got to get closer to the source. And I've just met a local who might be my ticket to the top.
It flies up about 600 feet and then it comes down, so it cools off on the way down. Yeah, but it's still enough instant. I mean, it goes like this. We thought the whole place was going.
How difficult is it to get there?
Man, 10 minutes.
So you can drive right up to a point and then walk for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I got my car right over here.
I love you.
There's tons of seismic activity.
Yeah.
This area is not stable. I mean, absolutely not. Just it's very, very, very quiet right now. But they do not know if it's going to blow or not. I'm trying to help these guys get rid of their wine, so I had a few glasses. I mean, they ain't going to be able to pump all of it up, so I'm going up there in a little while. It takes got about an hour walk back to the car.
Yeah.
But the twilight hour is the best. I see the smoke and the flames.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets dark, you can only see the
I mean, if we can follow you.
Sure, no problem.
So I met up with this very odd dude whose name is Vince, and he says that he can get me up to the vent. So I'm gonna trust him and follow him right now and see if we can get up there. It's starting to get dark, so we should be able to see that real incandescence coming up from the volcano. So I don't know how this is gonna work out, but stay tuned, we'll see.
Vince knows the roads of this island like the back of his hand. He usually leads fishing charters, but tonight he's guiding us as close to the eruption as possible. Then we'll have to hike the rest of the way. Hopefully getting this close to the source will get me the answers I'm looking for.
Now that night has fallen, I can clearly see that there's almost continuous explosions going on the flank of the volcano. There's actually two very vigorous vents and a lava flow coming down the side. It's a little hard to see still, but that just means I have to get a bit closer. All right, folks. We'll start off-roading. The really big lava flow, that's what's heading down into the towns. But higher up, the explosive part of the eruption, to me, it looks like there's too much lava for these explosions. So I think there's some lava tube or something below, further down the mountain, that's feeding these lava flows.
Lava tubes are formed when the top of lava flows harden and forms a roof above it. It acts like a tunnel and drains the lava from the volcano. This may mean the threat is greater than I thought, and many more communities could be at risk, starting with the neighboring town of Banguera.
Every time there's an explosion, I can feel the shock wave and the ground shaking.
This is what's called a strombolian eruption, named after the active Stromboli volcano in Italy. It spews lava at regular intervals.
You can see these lava bombs shooting up, just hundreds and hundreds of yards up in the air and tumbling down the side. These glowing chunks of lava are being pushed out at high pressure from these expanding gases deep inside the Earth.
I've got to be careful. There have been a few close ones.
A light show like this, it's nature's fireworks. It really is the best show on Earth. However, at the same time, if you're downhill of one of these things and the lava flow is coming for your village or your house, it's hard to appreciate the beauty.
Since the volcano first erupted 10 days ago, more than 1,000 people have fled their homes. Entire communities lost under hardened lava.
Let me tell you, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, I was inside this building as the lava flow came crashing through the door. Today, the entire building is completely destroyed by this lava flow. The good news is that it has stopped, for now. I can still hear in the distance the volcano erupting, so it could restart at any time. We don't know exactly what the future is going to hold for this town.
The economic impact is enormous. Destroyed homes, lost livelihoods, less land available for agriculture. Many of the refugees will not be coming back. But fast forward 10, 20, 30 years from now, and this land will once again offer up the nutrient-rich soil that will attract a new wave of farmers. So, despite the risk of future eruptions, the people of Fogo will eventually rebuild their communities within the caldera. It is, after all, the only option they have. Within months of leaving the island, we get word that the volcano continued to erupt, and as feared, destroyed the neighboring town of Banguera. Months after the first eruption, it's not showing any signs of stopping.